Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2023 Chevy Equinox, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style base plate kit with removable arms. Before we get into that though, let's just take a couple of minutes, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we kind of jump right in, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of refresh ourselves on the main components that we're going to need to flat tow our Equinox down the road in the first place. First one will be the base plate, and that's going to provide us with a solid attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up. Tow bar will be the second component, and this is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of our Equinox to the back of our coach. Third main part will be safety cables, and these are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. The fourth main component will be your tow bar wiring. And what this is going to do is transfer the lighting functions from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Chevy, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth major component will be a supplemental braking system. And what this will do is apply the brakes in your SUV whenever you hit the brakes in your RV, bringing you to a more complete and predictable stop. And then there's one other small thing I like to recommend, not only for the Equinox, but just about every single flat tow setup, and that's a battery charge line kit. What that'll do is essentially maintain or trickle charge your Chevy's battery whenever you're flat towing it down the road. That way all your systems will have the proper voltage they need to operate correctly, and once you get to your destination, you're not going to have to worry about a dead battery. So just something I wanted to mention, and something that I always like to recommend. So this is the way your Equinox can look whenever you're not hooked up to the motorhome and flat towing, which I think is important because chances are pretty good you're not always going to be doing that, right? And honestly, in terms of the appearance, I don't really think it can get a whole lot better. You don't have to cut out a ton of material on the front of the vehicle. Everything's kind of tucked back in there a little bit, and for having a lot of components up here, isn't super noticeable. It's not, they're not hanging way out and really annoying by any means. So like I said, I don't really think it can get a whole lot better in terms of the appearance. I do like the fact too that the base plate is going to come with some tabs and brackets already attached to it. And that's going to make it really simple and give you a great spot to be able to mount up your other components, like your wiring connector as well as your breakaway switch here. Whenever you are ready to hook up, the kit's going to have these removable arms, and so you're just going to have to put these in place, and these are going to give you that connection point you need to hook your tow bar up. So the way these work, put them in, you'll rotate it about a quarter turn until it locks into position. And same deal with the one over on your passenger side. With this being a crossbar style base plate, there are going to be a couple other things you're going to need to pick up separately to actually allow you to hook your tow bar up to it. And that is these plates here. These are actually going to bolt to the removable arms. The removable arms, of course, come with the base plate. So you'll have to pick up these if you don't have them already, as well as the actual crossbar. And you can pick up this whole kit here at eTrailer. And so what you would do now is drop that in and lock it down. And one of the advantages, I'm not gonna lie, usually I recommend direct connect style ones because you don't have to deal with this. The tow bar will just go right to the base plate. But there is an advantage to this in some circumstances, and I think this is one of them. So this usually will get your attachment points higher up off the ground, and if you have a really big and tall motorhome like we do, that'll help get the attachment point higher up, and that way our tow bar will be more level whenever we connect to it, potentially eliminating the need for a high-low adapter, which goes on the motorhome side and will drop the tow bar down to make it level. So this is kind of doing the same thing in a sense, and a little bit easier on your back too. You don't have to bend down as far to hook everything up. Once the crossbar's on there, you can take your tow bar end, line it up, and put your pin and clip through there, and that's how you're going to make your attachment as far as that goes. This base plate is going to be compatible with Roadmaster tow bars that use the same style, as well as other manufacturers too. So for example, we have the etrailer.com SD tow bar with Roadmaster ends. that'll work. And even there's adapters available. So let's say if you have a blue ox tow bar that you really like, and you don't want to get a whole new setup, you know, you can always get the adapter and change them out and allow that to pair up with your base plate. This is what the front of your Equinox can look like once you're all set up and once you have everything hooked up. And I like it, you know, for the most part it's pretty organized, pretty easy to tell what's going on. Not a whole lot to it there. With the crossbar style, like I said, it gets it up a little higher off the ground, and it actually makes the attachment points a little bit wider too, as opposed to direct connect style, where it would just plug right into the base plate. So I feel like because of that, it might help the vehicle track a little bit better, kind of giving it a wider footprint. So whether it holds true or not, that's just kind of my theory. Compared to some of the other base plates available in terms of appearance and how they're going to look when you're not hooked up, you know, they're all pretty close. They all look good and not any huge differences there. You know, this one being the crossbar style is kind of in a league of its own, if you will. And to be honest with you, I'm usually not a huge fan of them because you do have these extra parts and pieces you need to deal with. But I think in this case, with our motorhome sitting up so high, you know, you'd either have to use this style or a high-low adapter to get your tow bar level. And since we're using this style and it bumps that attachment point up, it eliminated the need for the high-low. So one way or the other, you know, it ended up working out. But as far as the installation is concerned, these probably fall somewhere in the middle difficulty level. You know, it's not the easiest, not the hardest. It'll definitely take you a little bit of time. So stay patient, but everything's pretty straightforward and went together fairly well. So if you'd like to hang around, feel free to. We'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our Equinox, and we are going to need to remove the front fascia. So the first fasteners that we'll focus on will be along this edge. We're going to have a total of 6, 3 on each side. So here's what they're going to look like. We'll pull them all out using a T15 Torx bit. Now if you move, look at the corner of your headlight, there's going to be a fastener up here. That's a 7mm. We'll pull that out. And I want to mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. But then eventually we'll take our headlights out, right? But there's a plastic fastener here holding on the electrical connector to it. And while we're right here, we might as well remove it. So you can just take a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver and work that out. Now you can move to your front wheel wells, and if you turn your tires in or out one way or the other, it helps make it easier to get to these fasteners. But there's going to be 5 T15 Torx bit screws that run up. So we'll go ahead and get all these pulled out. Once you have those out, you can kind of grab your wheel well liner, pull it back like that. That way we can get to a single fastener located right up in here. That fastener you're looking for is located right here, so right where the quarter panel and the fascia meet. And that's going to have a 7mm head on it. These are in there pretty loose, so usually you can kind of break it loose and then just come in by hand, you know, holding your socket and get it completely removed. Underneath the front of our vehicle now, on each side, we're going to have these little deflectors. We can get them removed. So there's 4 of these screws, and they have a 7mm head. Lower this down and set it off to the side for now. On the front edge of our vehicle, on each side of it, There's gonna be 3 7mm head screws. We'll get them out. This underbody panel, we need to get that removed. So you'll have 1 7mm right in the middle there. And then several on the side, looks like 5 of them. Already got the other 5 on the other side removed. So we should be able to kind of grab this, drop it down, and get it out of the way for now. What we're able to do now is unsnap this chrome piece that runs along our headlight, and you want to be real careful when you're doing this because this is part of the whole front fascia, and it's pretty brittle. So I put some painter's tape where we're going to be working so we don't scratch anything. And then it helps too if you spray soapy water in there just to kind of give everything some lubrication. And starting in this corner, all right, you can lift up on this, right, and that'll kind of create a little gap there. What you can do is carefully start to kind of pry this out. And we're just going to kind of work our way down here. If it feels super tight, you know, don't force it. Just take your time with this. And you'll kind of start to feel it unclip. And so there's some plastic fasteners in there that's releasing. And that's exactly what we're looking for there. So these are these little white fasteners. That's what we were popping out. Now with an extra set of hands, we can get our front fascia removed. So we'll start here in the corner. And kind of just like the chrome piece that we did, I sprayed some soapy water in there, and this essentially just snaps free. And don't pull it off completely just yet. You know, you want to get it released, but there will be some electrical connectors over on the passenger side we have to disconnect. Here's one of the connectors. You pull back on that red tab, and then you can push down on the middle of it to release it. And that's going to be kind of pinned on there with a push pin fastener. So you just take a trim tool and pry that out like that. And then this one down here, you just push down on the middle. Release it. Now we can set our fascia off to the side. We're able to get our headlights removed now, so there's 2 more fasteners. One will be right here, and that's a 7mm. The other one is going to be located right there, so it's kind of tucked up in there, so you'll need an extension, and again a 7mm. You should be able to now kind of grab our headlight and lift up on it, pull it out, and we'll have to disconnect it. So this will work exactly the same as our bumper there when we remove that one. Pull the red tab out, push down on the middle, unplug it, we'll set this off to the side. We're gonna have 2 washer fluid lines that we'll need to remove, so one here and then one just behind it. With these, you can kind of push inward and then squeeze the sides. That'll release it. So the other one's here, but same deal to get it unhooked. And then since we're going to be removing the washer tank and we don't want it to leak, you can actually just take those 2 ends, plug them right into each other. There's going to be a fastener up top here that's securing our reservoir, located right there. So I'll use a 10mm to remove it. We can get this electrical disconnected on our washer reservoir. So this connector down here, it's a little bit different. What I like to do is take a small screwdriver or pick. You can kind of pry in behind it, lift that right up. Then this one's the same as our headlights and the other one, red tab. Push that down, and there's gonna be a few more fasteners we need to pull out. One of them will be right here. You'll use a 10mm. There will be another 10mm kind of at the bottom here that we will remove. This one here should be the last one. Once we get that out, we can kind of sneak this out from the vehicle and set it off to the side. Over here, just on the passenger side, if you look at the top of your frame rail, you're gonna see a ground. So there's a wire going to this nut here. We need to shift that over out of the way to make room for our base plate hardware. So you can take your 10, loosen that up, and you're gonna kind of swing this if I can get it to release here. You're gonna push this towards the inside of the vehicle. So about like that, and we'll just tighten it up back down. Over here on the driver's side, there's gonna be this ambient air temp sensor and some fasteners, push pins that will release. So trim tool, pop that off on this back side. And then to get this out, you can kind of rotate it a little bit, and these pieces there you kind of push in on, and it'll pop free. We'll just kind of let this hang off to the side for now. We're able to get our side plates on now, and there's this factory bolt here that we'll need to remove. This is helping to support our subframe. So what I like to do is just support one side. I have a jack here with a little bit of pressure on it, just because it can't hurt, right? So I have a 21mm socket. We're gonna pull this out. And we're gonna be reusing this to actually secure our side plate. And so any of the hardware that you use to get the base plate installed, you want to take some red Loctite, put it on the threads. You can grab a tube of this here at etrailer. We'll grab our side plate, and these are going to be side specific. So a quick way to tell is this piece you want towards the back of the vehicle, this tab facing towards the center of it. But this bolt is going to pass through there and bolt right back up into position. And we'll just get this hand tight for now. You can grab this long bolt, put on the Loctite, take a flat washer, slide it over, and you're gonna go up through the base plate. You're gonna take this tube spacer, line that up, get the bolt to pass through it here. Then on top of that, take a flat washer, like that. And then you can take these wedges, and you want the wedge, the angled portion to face up, so the flat part will be on the bottom. And you're gonna push that straight up, right on up through the top of the frame rail. Where the bolt comes through, you can take the other wedge. This time the angled part will be on the bottom, like that. Put on a flat washer, split lock washer, and the nut. With this hardware hand tight, we'll snug it back down. So 21 millimeter down here. And then we'll switch out for a 3/4 inch socket and wrench and snug this one down. Now you need to come back with a torque wrench and tighten down that hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. There's going to be a few holes we need to drill out. So you have these two up top and then this one down here in the corner. What I like to do is take a block of wood or something and kind of just put it behind there, because you do have some wiring and components back here, and if your drill bit accidentally gets pulled through too far, it'll hit the block of wood. You're not going to hurt anything, right? So I'll take my bit and get all these holes drilled out. The hardware that you're going to use for the holes that you just drilled, that'll be a bolt like that, and all three are going to be the same, all the hardware, you know. So put your Loctite on there, pass it through. Where it comes out the other side, take the split lock washer and a hex nut and get it started hand tight. I'm going to repeat that process for the other two holes. Once they're all in place and hand tight, come back with a 9/16 socket and wrench. We'll snug these down, and then of course once they're all snug, trade out for a torque wrench and tighten them down completely. We are going to need to trim a small portion of this air deflector here so our base plate will clear. So I'm just using a pair of snips to get this material removed. And on our driver's side, we're gonna have this keeper here where our temp sensor was. We'll cut that off as well. Now with an extra set of hands, we can take the center portion of our base plate, and this is going to slide on the inside of our bracket. Holes in it are gonna line up with the holes in the base plate. And what you're gonna do is take this bolt, put on a flat washer and your Loctite, feed that through, and then where it comes out, you can put a split lock washer and a nut, get that started hand tight. We'll use that same hardware combo for our remaining attachment points there. Just kind of a quick pointer here. A lot of times these holes aren't just going to line up perfectly when you set it in there. So a little manipulation might be needed. I got a little pry bar here. You can use a big screwdriver or something too. You can kind of pry that and work it into position. Then once you get another bolt started, it'll keep it like that, so everything will be lined up. With all that in place, you can tighten and torque it down using a 3/4 inch socket and wrench. So I've gone ahead and re-secured our ambient air temp sensor here, and all I did was just take a zip tie and zip tied it right to our base plate. You want this part facing the direction of travel, so towards the front of the vehicle. So I went ahead, reinstalled our washer fluid tank the opposite way that we removed it, as well as the passenger side headlight. I'm going to leave the driver's side one out because I'm going to be doing other components like a braking system and diode wiring, and I plan on running all my wires through there so it'll be easier to get to. But that's what I suggest doing as well. You know, if you have them other parts, go ahead and put them on now. So much easier with all this extra room to work. Then once you're done, you know, we can come back, get the fascia reinstalled. We'll probably have to trim a couple parts of it. So that's what I'm going to do. When I'm done, we'll show you how to get that fascia put back in place. Now that we have the rest of our flat towing components installed, we can get our front fascia back together. So what I've done is just put the fascia on loosely, you know, kind of clipped it up top and swing it down. Plugged in the electrical connectors that we undid on the passenger side. And we should be able to just kind of eyeball where we need to cut. So what I like to do is always start with less, you know, and then if you need to take more out, not a big deal. But for sure, on each side, we're gonna have to cut out a small opening here to clear our base plate. In pretty thin plastic, I'm just gonna use a pair of snips to cut this material out. I'll do this on the other side, and I'll see if I can't push this more forward and see where we need to go from here. I was able to get our fascia, you know, in place and really didn't have to cut out too much. I didn't have to do anything different than we did here. I did cut out this opening bigger just so it'd be easier to get to your safety chains. Then of course, if you have a braking system, you know, you might have to trim out an area there to clear the components. But like I said, what I do, cut, try to push it on further if it hits, cut more out, so on and so forth. And once you have the fitment how you like it, at this point you can simply re-secure everything the opposite way that you removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style base plate kit with removable arms on our 2023 Chevrolet Equinox.